Napoleon Bonaparte was not short. And the story of how this myth started is almost as interesting as the man himself. Napoleon's height is recorded in historical documents as 5 feet 2 inches in French units of measurement. The problem is that French inches and English inches are not the same length. A French inch is slightly longer than an English inch. When you convert his height correctly into modern measurements, Napoleon stood at approximately 5 feet 6 inches tall. That was the average height for a French man of his era. He was not tall, but he was absolutely not short either. So where did the myth come from? 2 places. The first is a British political cartoonist named James Gillray, who produced dozens of enormously popular caricatures of Napoleon during the Napoleonic Wars, depicting him as a tiny tantrum, throwing maps across rooms, while towering British officials looked on in amusement. These cartoons were so widely circulated and so effective as propaganda that the image stuck in the public imagination permanently. The second source is Napoleon's nickname among his own troops. They called him Le Petit Caporal, which translates as the Little Corporal. But this was a term of affection, not a description of his physical size. It referred to his habit of spending time with ordinary soldiers rather than keeping himself separate as a commanding general. His men loved him for it. The irony is that Napoleon was actually surrounded by an imperial guard whose minimum height requirement was 5 feet 9 inches. Standing next to exceptionally tall men every day probably did not help his reputation. But the historical record is clear. Napoleon Bonaparte was an average-sized man who was turned into a short one by British propaganda that was so effective it has survived for over 200 years. What other history myths do you want me to debunk? Drop them in the comments. Follow Morbid Historian for a new dark secret every week.